I came to Bitcoin through medium of exchange. Like, I did not understand digital gold. I did not understand, and that's just a narrative that came about later, by the way. I did not understand the 21 million cap. I didn't understand why Bitcoin could become valuable beyond the quality of being pseudonymous and being able to use it online. I did not understand that at that time. So for approximately a couple of years, I purchased and used Bitcoin exclusively. I never saved any of it. So there's a good, yeah. So when you look at the time frame and you think about how much weed costed back then and you do the math. So I've unfortunately at this point spent more Bitcoin than some countries will ever accumulate on weed. So it's pretty bad. It's like, I mean, but look, man, but you see, so look, so this is where we get to the point, right? Do you wish that you didn't smoke weed? Guess what? If I didn't smoke weed, I wouldn't have found Bitcoin.
Yo guys, what's up? Welcome back to the Orange Pill Order podcast. So today we've sat down with someone who has spent more time than almost anyone else asking Bitcoiners about their story, which is funny because obviously today we're flipping it on him. So he goes by Coinicarus online and his real name is Phil. And he's the host of the Fun with Bitcoin podcast. And he is also a core voice at the Pleb Underground and the guy who convenes the monthly Lightning Node Roundtable that gets the Lightning developers community in one room. He found Bitcoin in 2016 and has been at this for a decade. So obviously, you know, he knows a lot. He's been around, he knows his stuff. Honestly, if you've been on Bitcoin Twitter for any length of time, you probably follow him or have listened to him or had him follow back at 4 a.m. So without further ado, Phil, welcome to the Orange Pill Order podcast.
Thank you so much. You might want to add mostly muted or unfollowed me by now at this point. Pretty, I guess, controversial voice. But man, I really appreciate the intro. You did some solid homework there. The Fun with Bitcoin podcast.
That's I mean, you're very interesting. You're a very interesting person. So I'm more than excited to kind of delve into the different areas where you've been involved.
Absolutely. What would you like to? What do you want to start with?
Well, I mean, I think the best way to start is from the beginning. So, we'll go back from when you were younger, and so you describe yourself as a host and hodler of last resort, which is obviously a great line. But before any of that, you described yourself as a curious kid who always wondered why money was worth less and less. And so can you take me there, and how old was that? Like, how old are we talking? Are we talking like, 5 or, 12? What kind of things were you noticing back then?
Okay, interesting. So yeah, essentially I started to, so first of all, it's definitely not at 5 years old. I wish I was super advanced like that. But I was definitely not. At 5 years old, I was, riding around on my bike with my little Fisher-Price radio playing Michael Jackson's Beat It and Thriller. So that was, right, I'm a Gen Xer, so that was 5 years old for me. We were outside, parents weren't paying attention to you, and you were just exploring, right? You were exploring. So we were, I think it's a different level of freedom that we had back then. Nobody knew what you were doing. There was no social media. There was no trackers, right? And we were, for all intents and purposes, free in comparison to today. But yeah, I started to notice really that the money was broken after. Okay, we got to back up because essentially there was a recession. Okay, so in 1987, there was a stock market crash that occurred in the U.S., all right? I grew up in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And of course, like Canada suffers after effects from the U.S. markets, but it's not right away. So in my father's business, what he was doing was fairly resilient. He owned a dental lab and made teeth, right, for a living. And so that, right, it's to a certain extent, it's a necessity. You have to eat. So my family, for all intents and purposes, was sheltered. right, for a good amount of time from that recession that started to loom into Canada from the US. Now, even though the US wasn't even actually in a recession somehow. I don't even understand how the hell that happened, but it's Canada, okay? It's Canada. You got to chalk it up to that. So anyways, fast forward, you get to like 1990, like 394, you know, it's like I'm like 14 years old, 15 years old, and all of a sudden like the financial landscape is changing, right? And I'm, you know, obviously at this point, my father's business is being impacted. And to speed this part of the story along, right, he ended up going through a bankruptcy that took place when I was like, I think it was I think I was, that the first bankruptcy or the second one? No, that was the first one. So yeah, it was like I think I was 18. Okay, I was 18 years old. So at that moment, right, all of a sudden, you know, like when your financial situation changes, you start to notice things that you never really noticed before, right? Because of course, you know, it's the same difference, right? Like let's say when an ultra wealthy person goes to, you know, fill up the tank in their car, it's not like, you know what I mean? It's not I'm filling up my tank or I'm buying food, right? Yeah. This is just what I'm doing now, and I'm going off to do this other thing. But eventually, you know, unfortunately, in this situation, I did get to that point where you got to figure out, okay, well, you know, there's opportunity cost to every single thing I'm doing. And so I became curious about the money system, right? I was like, how does this all work? You know, because you start to get financially impacted and you start to wonder. So I went down the rabbit hole of how money was made. I remember reading this funny little book called I think it was called The Green Book of Money. And it went through this very simple explanation about how the government produces currency. And I was like, okay, that makes sense, you know? And then I remember asking my father, right, at this age, right? So think about it, right? I'm like 18, 19 years old. So I'm not that young, and I've gone through high school economics and stuff like that and everything, right? I'm in college. And so I'm like, I don't get it. I go, if there's always a shortage of money, I'm like, why can't they just make more? And he looked at me and he's like, the government takes care of how money's made. He's like, that's pretty much all you need to know. And right there, I knew that for me, like, I'm like, okay, he's never dug into this. Like, you spend your entire life, right? Like I watched him work like, you know, 100 hours a week for, I don't know how long. It was insane, right? Like it was just nuts. Never days off or anything like that. There were no sick days, like just working like a horse. And the thing you're getting is money, and you haven't tried to figure out the intricacies of these things. So anyways, so that was my first expose to money. And then we fast forward to the age of like 22 or 24. Okay. I worked for a telemarketing room. I had graduated from network administration, and I was the IT guy for a telemarketing room, essentially handling the database, feeding the leads, and dealing with people's, you know, my keyboard is frozen, my mouse doesn't work, you know, just like low level IT. Sorry about swearing.
Oh, it's like fine.
Okay, sorry. Anyways, so yeah, you know, like I'm working for this company, right, which is obviously less than, you know, moral, right? Telemarketing is telemarketing. There is some decent telemarketers out there. However, there's a lot of really shady telemarketers, and I worked for very shady telemarketers. And anyways, that shade ended up passing over, right, even to the employees. So one day, all of a sudden, I go to use my bank card, and the transaction is denied. So I'm like, okay, well, I know I got paid, so I for sure had, you know, the money in the account. So I try again, gets denied again. So at that point, obviously, I go and I call the bank, and they proceeded to tell me that my last 3 paychecks all bounced out of my account, and as a result, my account has been flagged and has been disabled. So at the age of, you know, 23 or whatever it was, maybe it was 22. Anyways, the older you get, it just doesn't, all that time goes away. I was debanked in my mind, right? I just all of a sudden, and I learned the very important lesson at that moment, right? So understanding how money is created is like part of it. But then the other piece of it is understanding how it's all on loan. And so that was my initial foray into understanding money. However, none of that ended up translating into why I got into Bitcoin. It did end up translating into why I got Bitcoin, right? Why I had the light bulb moment, but it didn't translate into me getting into Bitcoin. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say.
story of
Yeah.
learning about money, the childhood.
Yeah, because I mean, I know a lot of people, you know, when they first like discover Bitcoin, they don't get it for another, you know, 2 cycles, but I mean, you got it immediately. So that's what I was going to say. Yeah, is that, did you not?
No, I did not get it immediately, man. I went so like, okay, if we're gonna get to that piece of the story, so okay, I moved from Canada to the States. Okay, so if you know anything about Montreal and you know anything about weed, you know that marijuana in Montreal is specifically Quebec, Canada as a whole, it's a joke. Even before it was legalized, cops don't pull you over for that. Nobody cares. Like it's just nobody cares. Okay. Now I moved to the States, and in the States, people care. The government, the police cares. They, you know, and the laws are much more stringent and they're much more punitive. And I am not jail material. You know, some people can, you know, I just like, look, you got to know yourself, right? Like, I'm just not one of those dudes, right? I wouldn't fare well in that place. Some people could, and good for them. You know, it's just not my case. And yeah, so I had to, you know, I had to figure out a way to, because I wasn't going to quit smoking weed. I had no interest in quitting. Not good to be a quitter. I'm kidding. It's good to quit things, obviously. But, you know, I had to find a way that I could buy it and reduce friction because I really didn't want to drive around with it in my car. And I didn't want, you know, I just wanted to reduce friction. Yeah. And so I had heard about Bitcoin from one of my friends who was into satellite hacking. He used to hack satellite dishes, right? So he's telling me about this magic internet money. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, this stuff is garbage. I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm like, I'm not buying digital Pokemon, you know, or whatever it is. And I laughed it off. Like everybody's just laughing off. Who cares about this stuff? But now we fast forward to 2014, right? And I have a perceived need, right? And this need is to, you know, get marijuana from point A to point B. You know, from wherever it's coming from to my house. So I start looking into the wonderful world of, you know, the, you know, like the, you know, dark net and like all of these like, you know, dark markets and stuff, like trying to find something. Anyways, I was able to find a quote unquote legitimate site and everything. And so I came to Bitcoin through medium of exchange. Like I did not understand digital gold. I did not understand, and that's just a narrative that came about later, by the way. I did not understand the 21 million cap. I didn't understand why Bitcoin could become valuable beyond the quality of being pseudonymous and being able to use it online. I did not understand that at that time. So for approximately a couple of years, I purchased and used Bitcoin exclusively. I never saved any of it. So there's a good, yeah. So when you look at the time frame and you think about how much weed costed back then and you do the math. So I've unfortunately at this point spent more Bitcoin than some countries will ever accumulate on weed. So it's pretty bad. It's like, I mean, but look, man, but you see, so look, so this is where we get to the point, right? Do you wish that you didn't smoke weed? Guess what? If I didn't smoke weed, I wouldn't have found Bitcoin. I truly only found it through necessity. So, yeah.
That is, I mean, yeah. Again, as much as you know, you think that you know in 2014 you spent a lot of Bitcoin. I mean, we're still really early. Even now, if you're discovering it now, I mean, you're ahead of everyone. So yeah, I mean, it is very interesting. But going back to when you were like discovering the flaws of the monetary system and like seeing money being devalued. Did you ever like ask anyone around you if they had any answers, like if your dad knew or anything?
I'm sorry, I just lost the connection for a second here.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Did
I'm
you
sorry. Hello?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, I'm just going back to when you were kind of 18 and seeing the money system. Was there
Mm.
anyone around you, maybe teachers or anyone really, that kind of knew why the money was being devalued or how it was being devalued?
No, no. So that's the other thing too, right? Like when you go to, so I went to public school, and I know that private school is no different when it comes to this, but when they teach you economics, right, they're teaching you Keynesian economics,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah.
It's not a like I wasn't introduced to money through school in the sense of, hey, there's this system where the governments print money, and then there's this other hard money system. Like none of that. It's just this is how money works.
Yeah.
Okay, the government goes and sells treasury bonds to, a central bank. The central bank then allows the banks to issue currency based on those bonds, and round we go. Did you ever read The Creature from Jekyll Island?
I haven't, but I've been meaning to for a while.
Okay, so I mean, look, it's going to be centric to the U.S. monetary system, right?
Yeah.
However, all governments are doing essentially the same thing. So if you read The Creature from Jekyll Island, there's going to be a very specific piece of it. They talk about this thing called the Mandrake mechanism, and this is the actual process by which money is created out of thin air. It's very like it's obviously it's obviously very interesting and conspiratorial, so to speak. However, when you understand how money is actually made, it's not conspiratorial. It is what it is, right? Like the essentially the country is selling itself to a lender of last resort, and that lender of last resort is allowing the country to print currency. So essentially, right, if you simplify it as much as possible, every penny that comes into existence is automatically in debt. So there was never like, it's not like there was something pristine to borrow from to begin with. All it is the constant promise to pay back that debt. That's all that is. So whenever you hear of governments talking about paying back the debt, right? Like you'll often hear, the rhetoric, especially in Bitcoin circles, right? You hear about the strategic Bitcoin reserve, and the U.S. is going to pay off their debt. They're going to sell the gold. They're going to do all that stuff. So look, that's not how money works. Okay. Indeed, they may LARP and pay back some debt because it's a giant show and it looks good and it keeps. Remember, it's a confidence game, right? That's what this is. It's a big confidence game. So that way, right, it gives people confidence. Hey, look, my government's doing the right thing. You got to understand that debt will never be repaid. No debt will ever be repaid. And the simple reason is that if a country's debt is fully repaid, it no longer has any money in the economy. It's that simple because all of the money is debt.
Yeah.
So I don't even remember what your original question was. I just got lost in the
No,
woods. I'm so sorry.
no, that's fine. It was a great answer. I mean, yeah, it was just asking about if anyone around you at the time knew. And
Oh yeah, no, nobody. Sorry.
Yeah.
To answer your question, nobody, dude. Okay. And when I talked about this, all of my friends, for real, all of my friends were like, why are you wasting your time? I'll never forget this. One of my best friends said to me straight up, he goes, you're wasting your time. He goes, so what? He goes, and if you figure this out, what are you going to do with the information? And look, at the time, there was no Bitcoin, right? At the time, there wasn't. So I was like, well, then I could figure out how to counteract it. And it was true. So look, if we back up, right, before Bitcoin, in terms of financial stuff, like the only hope you had was you were going to work your way up in a job, save money, and then either buy gold, buy real estate, buy a business, buy some combination of these things, and or buy stocks. Okay? This is pretty much, this was it. Okay? And this is what you had to play with. so for me, I had already figured out that I don't want to be grinding on this wheel. Like, because I understood that the money was broken and that everything was just simply going to go up, I understood that it wasn't enough to just work a job. I needed to have a form of income that also offset inflation, right?
Yeah.
So you start looking, and then you fall at, in my case, before Bitcoin, I fell upon, right, like dividend paying stocks, right? Or a way that some people will know it, like the aristocratic stocks, right? It's essentially the stock list of companies, like 50 companies that have paid. No, sorry, it's not 50 companies. I don't remember the exact number of companies, but it's companies that have paid a dividend, a growing dividend, for at least, I believe, 25 years plus or 30 years plus. Okay. So essentially what you do is that you take part of your salary and you plunk it into this. And then what you do is you set up a dividend reinvestment program where it's going to keep buying its own shares. So you keep adding money, plus it keeps buying its own shares. When you do the math, you do this for about, depending on how much you save, depending on how much you get paid, what your life standard is, right? I'm painting with a broad brush. It'll take you about 10 to 15 years to create an income out of nothing. Okay. Yeah. And that way, right? Like, so you're working the whole time, but now all of a sudden you've created this secondary income where it allows you to possibly walk away from this wheel, this constant grind, right? Yeah. Where you can, and that was my plan. And that was my plan before I found Bitcoin. So again, right? Like, none of my friends, like, nobody even cared about how the money was made. And in the end, right? Like, it was all about just using the current tools that you had. So either you figured out the tools or you didn't. It was that simple.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting, because I feel like it's a massive contrast to how you were growing up as to how I'm growing up in terms of what people plan to do with their lives. Because I think a lot of people my age don't really know what they're going to do, because kind of working your way up the job ladder to kind of get a better job, it doesn't necessarily work anymore. And especially going to uni to get a job, that even more doesn't work. I mean, I know a lot of people this year that are just not going to uni because they don't see it's worth it. And I think, again, this is why Bitcoin needs to be taught a lot more to these younger generations, because they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're going to do for a job. They don't know what they're going to do with the money they get from that job. And they're kind of lost, really. Yeah.
It's tough, right? It's so I remember, and this is interesting, right? Because even at the time of, like, I'm a Gen Xer, right? So I was going to college in 1998, right? For reference, right? Like 97, 98 kind of thing, or 99. Anyways, whatever. Pre-millennial. And we already had that feeling that you essentially, like, look, okay, think of it like this. Even back then, if you weren't going to school to, like, be a doctor or a lawyer or some kind of, like, a physician of sorts, you're pretty much wasting your time, right? Like, because the world doesn't need another, like, another philosophy major on welfare. Okay, like there's lots of people like that, and it's unfortunate, right? But so and this is what happens. Okay, so this is the weird thing: you have a bunch of passionate people. They want to go to school. They want to learn something, right? And then you quickly realize the world doesn't actually pay you based on how passionate you are about what you're doing. Nobody cares. Okay, this is like a very hard thing to understand. Like, nobody cares. Okay, like, and it's, once you understand that, then the next step is okay, am I willing to sacrifice, right? Am I willing to pay the price to do this thing that I love? Because if you're not willing to pay the price, then you will fail. Like, it's, and you won't be able to come back from it. But if you are willing to pay the price, then hey, maybe you become a successful philosophy teacher, you know, or something like that, right? Maybe you don't end up as one of those statistics as a highly educated person that is living on welfare. And I know I'm painting with a broad brush, but in my experience, right, I had the idealistic thing that I wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
And then, which, like when I was in high school or even early college, like I was fascinated with anthropology. And I was thinking, maybe I could be like an archaeologist or something like that,
Yeah.
Because, I grew up watching Indiana Jones, and I'm like, all right, that guy's having
Yeah.
fun. He's got the hat, the whip. It's like he's going on
Yeah.
adventures. I could live like that. Well, it
Yeah.
turns out that those people, they, for the most part, they're either the working poor, or they have very wealthy donors and supporters,
Yeah.
right? So you quickly realize that it's not about doing something that you're passionate about. It's about doing something that pays the bills. And unfortunately, once you make that distinction, you go down a different path. You go down a path of needs versus a path of desire. Okay.
Yeah.
And when you start doing needs-based goals, life just does, I don't know. It changes, in my opinion, for the worse. Yeah, you can get pretty far with needs-based goals, but for the most part, you're going to be pretty miserable because you're not going to be doing something that is fulfilling. And this is the other problem, right? As you've probably realized growing up, most people are doing jobs that are unfulfilling.
Yeah.
And that weighs on the psyche, right? Like, it's, you imagine, doing that for like 30, 40 years. It's tough, man. It's tough.
It's very tough. It's
You know?
very tough. And especially even more so now with my generation. I mean, I don't think anyone really is kind of chasing what they actually want to do, unless, of course, they want to be a doctor or a lawyer. But if you want to, I don't know, do a degree in drama, for example, it might not necessarily, get you anywhere, even if you are passionate about it. I mean, there's how many drama teachers, how many whatever that, you need a drama degree, but there's too many people that want these jobs, but there's not enough jobs on offer. So people just end up, as you said, doing the needs-based kind of jobs, and seems to be everyone seems a lot more upset, more depressed, whatever. Yeah, unhappy.
This is why, okay, and as corny as it sounds, this is why you have to save the income, right? This is why you have to save what you make, and this is why Bitcoin becomes so appealing, because you could either go into the casino, right? The casino of stonks and all the coins and all of that stuff, and hope to God the board of directors isn't, going to make bad decisions. Hope to God the CEO isn't going to make terrible decisions, right? It's like, or, you can just buy Bitcoin, stick it in cold storage, and accumulate it. But the point of it, right? The whole point of it, regardless, is this. You take at least, if you can, you do your best to do this, you take 10% of whatever you earn annually, right? You figure out what you earn annually, you take at least 10%. And this isn't coming from me. I'm not dispelling some wisdom that I came up with. This is old shit. Okay? This is old shit from like the early 1900s. And it's true, just as true as it was then, it is true today. You take at least 10% of your income and you save it. Okay? And what that does is that, because you'll see, 10 years comes way faster than you think. Okay?
Yeah.
I still feel like I'm in my 20s and I'm in my late 40s. So believe me, time flies. But what it provides for you is optionality. What it provides is, so look, there's two different feelings. When you don't have savings, okay, you feel a person, and this is true to almost any human, because we are humans at the end of the day, as much as some of us like to pretend we're not. At the end of the day, when you have money in the bank, you feel more confident. Okay, that's number one. Number two, feel more secure. Number three, you feel as though you have more options. And that is an optimistic person. So even if you're doing a job that you hate, you've got this other thing. Now, let's look at the second person. Doesn't save. Is in the same position, right? So they don't save. No optionality. Insecure because they're living paycheck to paycheck. Number three, they're most likely spending all of their money on vices, right? And I'm not even talking about like smoking or drinking or drugs and stuff like that. I'm talking about the constant wheel of the brand new phone, the brand new car, the going on all the trips, the buying all the brand name just keeping up with the Joneses, essentially just keeping you running on that wheel, that person is miserable. That person, okay, they might think that they're happy, but deep inside, they're scared as, okay, because they built on quicksand. Second, the music stops, right? They don't have a chair to sit on. You, on the other hand, the music stops. You just hop into your boat. You're like, okay, music stopped. I'm going to sit here from the sideline and I'm going to watch until everything is fine. And then I'm going to step back on. It's a very different. So, and you can choose that outlook, right? It doesn't matter. It's like you can, it's like, people sit there and it's like they think that they have to have so many resources. That's not how, like, it's like you don't just wake up one day and have resources. You don't just wake up one day, like, not, I mean, some people do, right? Some people are born into wealth and stuff like that. And that's fantastic for them. But for those of us who are not, right, like, you got to build that up for yourself. And once you do, right, once you've done that, then it's almost like you have, it's like you've leveled up in the basic, in the basic game. Yeah. And you can just keep doing that. Yeah. The problem, the hardest part is getting off of zero. Okay. And this is true regardless of Bitcoin, right? Like regardless of whether you're saving in Bitcoin or you're just trying to start your life off. It is very it's one of the, think of it like this, right? You rise and you fall with your thoughts. So when you give up in your mind, you're going to give up in real life. It's that simple. It is truly that simple. In your mind, if you look at the mountain and you say the mountain is too high, I can't climb this, I'm never going to get there, then guess what? You are absolutely never going to get there and you can't climb this. It's that simple.
Absolutely, yeah. Completely agree. It's all about mindset. And as you said, that saving, even just 10%, I mean, I think that's a big thing that younger generations need to do more of, because I've seen, a lot of people my age, they get money and it's just gone. It's gone immediately. No one's saving anything. And I think that's the most insane thing to me, because now is the time more than ever that you should be saving. I mean, everyone's complaining, cost of living crisis, we're going into a world where we're screwed, basically, we can't do anything. But you're not even saving, so you're not even trying to save yourself. What are you complaining about when there are the keys right there to stop yourself from falling under this bridge?
That's right. And look, it's not fun, okay? It's not fun to save. Like, especially, like, man, I remember being in my 20s. I did not save, okay? Like, when I was in my early 20s and stuff like that, and I was discovering, broken money and becoming, like, an anarchist and, like, the government and all that, I wasn't saving anything. I was going out. I was partying with my friends. It's very difficult. And I'm not saying, like, hey, man, like, don't go party. Like, yes, you need to have some balance, right? There needs to be some balance. But what people don't realize is that, so look, money compounds faster the sooner you start, okay? Yeah. So if you don't start in your 20s, you're going to have to work almost 4 times as hard in your 40s to capture the same gain, okay? That is scary as hell. That is absolutely scary, okay? And the part I wanted to say, sorry, about things not being fun. Look, I remember, right? A lot of my friends, they had super nice cars, like young, right? They had nice cars, go do nice things. I have friends that were going away on vacations every year, twice a year, 3 times a year. I'm not one of those dudes, okay? Like instead, what I did was that at the time, this was before Bitcoin, okay? But at the time, I was buying MasterCard shares and stuff like that, specifically MasterCard and Visa. Why? Because I understood the money was broken. Keep in mind, this is before Bitcoin. This was my first move that allowed me to start to free myself financially. So MasterCard IPO came out, and in no way am I shilling this. This is not financial advice. I'm not telling anybody to buy MasterCard. Okay. Anyways, so I took the time to understand how MasterCard made money. I took the time to understand what the network effect of their moat was. And so when that company finally became public, I was like, so they don't carry any debt. They're just licensing, and they're a payment network, okay? So that means they have massive margins. And I understood that the money was never going to stop being printed. So for me, it was just a bet on the money supply, right? Yeah. Well, there you go. So, you know, like because of that, right? Because I did that move, well, I was able to all of a sudden, when it came time to get married, I was able to pay for, you know, pay for the wedding ring and the engagement ring and part of the wedding itself. And right, like
Yeah.
it makes you capable, right? All of a sudden, like now because I wasn't getting any help anyways, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that you need the funds to be able to do it. And that enabled me, right, to get to my next step. You know, so that's the during that time, right? I had other friends that didn't have to do those things, right? They didn't have to save. They had somebody else helping, and that's totally fine, right? Everybody has a different situation. But let's say I had a friend where nobody was helping, and he couldn't figure out why he couldn't get out of his own way. But then again, he was never saving, right? So that's the whole point of it, and that's why I'm telling you, it's like 10 years comes really fast. So like it might not be cool, right, and it might not be fun to be the guy saving, but the truth of the matter is that when it really counts, okay, when it really counts, which is going to be your future, because that's where you're going to spend the majority of your time of your life is in the future, believe it or not. You're going to be thrilled that you made those decisions. You're going to be looking back and you're going to be like, genius, okay, for real. Like that's, and the other thing is this, okay, the other thing is this. For the people that don't understand this already, I'd be shocked if you don't. But nobody is actually living like what the media portrays. Right? Like when you're watching all of these things, like when you see these people, like, you know what I mean? Like these things are designed to be sold to you. Did you know that BMW doesn't market to people that actually own BMWs or that could own BMWs? Did you know that? You know who they market to? They market to people who can't afford BMWs. I'm not joking you. Do you know why? Because it creates the perception. See, the average person now believes that this upper class person drives a BMW. So they believe that when they work their way up, they too can afford the BMW. And again, I'm not saying, oh, well, you shouldn't buy a BMW. No, I'm just saying everything is marketing. Everybody, there's not a single person, myself included, right? We all learn how to live from somebody else. Okay? So there's not a single person on this planet that has learned how to do anything original. We've learned how to do everything from other people. So based on that, you can just simply extrapolate that there isn't a single person around you that knows how to live your life better than you do. Okay? You could just full stop. Nobody knows how to do it better for me than me. Why? Because we're all just imitating. So it's like, maybe I'm not going to do what everyone else is doing. Right? Like, you know that meme where you've got the crowd all on the one side and then you got this one guy alone and he's like, yes, you're all wrong. Well, that's it. You got to be willing to be that person, right? You got to be, because the average person, right? The average person out there is seeing it. They believe the show. They believe what they see. The government is here to help you. The police is here to protect you, right? Serve and protect the public. It's like all of that. It's all just, it really is. You don't have to get mad about it, right? Like, it's like people get like upset and they think I got to do something about it. Look, the average person isn't fixing any of this. All you got to do is figure out, once you understand it, then the next step is, how do I express the greatest degree of personal freedom that I possibly can living in this society? And this is where you get Bitcoin. This is like one of the ways where it's like, well, I can buy and hold Bitcoin and I can store it and I could put it in cold storage and I can hold my keys, and it is truly the only bearer asset in humanity that you can take full charge of. People do not realize like what that enables. Anyways, yep.
No, that's great. That's Bitcoin philosophy right there. I mean, yeah, definitely younger generations need to listen to that. Especially, people around me. I know a lot of people that are just exactly as you described. So, definitely needed. But here's another thought. If you had been 10 years younger when you found Bitcoin, do you think you'd be a different person today?
Maybe not. You know what?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm pretty consistent in terms of like I'm pretty much the same person I was when I was like in my 20s. I probably need to ask my wife though. She'd have a better gauge of whether, right, because it's like the reality is fluid. So you know what? I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say that. Excuse me. I would not be a different person because my values haven't changed. Yeah. I wouldn't. I would say that I wouldn't be a different person. But I would have been. I would have been mentally free a lot sooner. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure. That was another thing, right? The ability to be able to walk away from from your normie job to pursue something that you love, right? As you mentioned at the beginning of the show, right? I started off with the Fun with Bitcoin podcast. That was an audio only podcast. I interviewed back in 2017, 2018, or 2018, 2019. I don't even remember anymore. I don't know. I interviewed at least 100 people, at least 100 Bitcoiners, and obviously some, very, people like Adam Back and Samson Mao and like all the people, you're right, like even Dan Held and a whole bunch of influencers, right? And I wanted to hear all their rabbit hole stories. I was completely obsessed with their rabbit hole stories. And that's what I was doing while I was working my full-time job, right? While I was doing technical support. And then I was able to leave my job at the end of 2021, I think it was. Was it the end of 2021? The end of 2020. Anyways, so yeah, 4 years ago, something like that. And I'll never forget this. I worked with this guy who kept making fun of me for buying Bitcoin. And, he was one of those guys, like, he's super smart, right? He's really smart. Oh, ETH. Why can't ETH be the number one? He's like super smart. Yeah, well. And I was like, oh, dude, I'm like, why don't you go buy it? And he was like, oh, it doesn't matter because all of it's a scam. Well, I'll never forget this. I'm like, it was like a week before I left. I was like, you know what? Maybe it is all a scam, but guess what? I'm leaving this job now. Yeah. so it's like, call it what you want, right? It just allowed me to change my life and take a risk doing something that I enjoy, right? And every single day, I do Pleb Underground and I talk about Bitcoin. This is, like, I can't not be grateful for that. You know what I mean? Like it's, anyways, good times.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. People can say what they want. I mean, I know a lot of people around me, like my age, no one really gets Bitcoin. Obviously, I'll do my best to explain to everyone, but yeah, as you said, no one gets it. But at the end of the day, if the proof of work is there, the proof of work is there. And, in 20 years' time, hopefully I'm not going to be working. And, I think a lot of other people my age definitely will be. So, yeah. Moving on to the Fun with Bitcoin podcast, as you said. So 2019, episode 1 was just you kind of introducing yourself. And
that's great.
Yeah. And now, I mean, you're on episode 138. So why did you actually start it? Because obviously no one starts a podcast just for the fun of it. So there's always a reason. And what was yours?
My reason was very simple. I wanted to stay engaged. I found Bitcoin, right? So keep in mind, so we need to back up. I don't know. Are you on Twitter? I mean, yeah. Besides your orange, besides the account for your podcast. Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, no, because I want to make sure I get the name right here. Besides the Orange Pill Order podcast account, you're on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you got to back up, right? You back up to pre-2020. There was no spaces. There was no voice. All there was threads and the battle of ideas in threads. Okay? So I had gotten my ass handed to me because I came to Bitcoin through medium of exchange, right? So I did not get all the digital gold stuff. Which that narrative, like I said, came later. I didn't get the 21 hard cap, even though I knew it had a hard cap. I didn't understand why it mattered. right? Like I was like, okay, good for you, hard cap, great. None of that. And of course I was on Facebook. Okay. I'm a Gen Xer, Facebook. It's not unusual. Man, the absolute garbage in terms of crypto that there was, and there still is to this day on Facebook, is astounding. Okay. The worst advice you will ever get, possibly some of the worst, just the worst scammers. You think they're bad on Twitter, but Facebook, it's even worse. It's somehow, okay? That's where all the stuff like all these high yield investment programs were being shilled, like BitConnect. There was people selling fake signing devices. I mean, not that doesn't happen on Twitter, but anyways, I'm just giving you a context so you realize what I came from, okay? And so, like, all I knew was coins. And at this point, I had gotten, I'm fast forwarding, I had gotten wrecked, okay? Like, I had gotten wrecked. I lost, like, close to, like, I don't know, anywhere between $22,000 to $30,000. And that was, at the time, right? It wasn't my 401k, thank God. I still had a 401k that I had been saving in, but this was my other savings that I had turned into less savings. And I was like, oh, this is brutal. And I remember I almost left. Like I was like, I'm done. Right? I'm just going to continue to use this for, what I'm doing with it and forget the rest of this. And I remember saying to myself, because I had remembered quitting in the past on different things. And I remember regretting quitting. And I said to myself, okay, one last time. Why did you get fascinated with Bitcoin from using it? Like, what was it? And so I kind of revisited my original reasons for using Bitcoin. And so at that point, I said to myself, you know what? None of these other things are going anywhere. Nobody uses any of these other things. I'm going to sell all of this stuff, and I am just going to start buying and accumulating Bitcoin. Now, around that time, I had started to find, because on Facebook, people started posting Twitter posts. And I'm like, where are all these amazing Bitcoin posts coming from? Like, I'm seeing all these like really hardcore, and you got to remember, it was a different time back then, right? Like Ethereum had just started to they were just starting to announce ICOs on Ethereum, right? And people were just starting to understand the utility token use cases and all of this stuff. And it was all blowing up. So it was a very different time than it is today. Like, believe it or not, when Ethereum first started trading, right? Like, people didn't see ETH the way they see it today. Back then, it was just some project that they were trying stuff out on. But then it became apparent what it was, right? And that it was going to attempt to steal Bitcoin's thunder. Yeah. So anyways, I ended up going on a tangent, and I lost where I was going with that. I apologize. It's old age. But essentially what ended up happening was that I'm going to go back, essentially what ended up happening was that I sold, I sold all of my coins. I just started hodling Bitcoin, and like I was saying, right, started to see these posts from Twitter, and I was like, what the hell's going on Twitter? So I go over to Twitter, and I start seeing these very passionate Bitcoin maximalists. Like, here, the signal was completely different than Facebook. Facebook, the signal was Bitcoin is trash and altcoin will rule. Okay, like, and you had these memes. One of the best memes was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right, where they show you the young turtles and young Splinter, right, and essentially Splinter is Bitcoin, and all these coins are the turtles. Okay, and then they fast forward to old turtles, right, where Splinter is old and the turtles are all grown up, and of course, right, Splinter is Bitcoin. He's old now, and the coins need to help him out. Like, you. But again, on Facebook, it was like, whoa, this is crazy stuff, like, so anyways, you go over to Twitter, and it's totally different. Twitter, these people are vocal, right? These people are like, your coin, it's an affinity scam. This is a scam. You're a grifter, all this stuff. And I'm like, whoa, like these guys are so vocal. They're so upset. Like, where do they get this this conviction from. So I started following these accounts, right? You start following them, you start to get to know them, you start to get to know these people. And essentially, this is where I was like, you know what? I want to talk to these people. I want to know what's their rabbit hole story, right? Like, where did this conviction come from? And that is the long roundabout story of why I started doing the podcast, was because it kept me engaged, right? Because I was speaking to all these people, and it was a positive feedback loop, right? Yeah. You're doing it to a certain extent right now. You're talking to somebody who's been in Bitcoin, who's been hodling since 2017, and it's, 2018, and here you are, we're in 2026, right? And I'm telling you this story, and it's like, it's a positive feedback loop. And this is exactly what it was. So I wanted to speak to them, and I wanted to understand where they got this conviction from. And it did. It helped. You know what I mean? Like, it kept me engaged through the bear market, right? While everybody else was crying about Bitcoin, I was happily stacking it. And I was learning about Lightning, because at the time, right, the Lightning network was brand new, 2018. That was the other thing too, right? It's very hard to stay engaged if you're not a coder, right? Like, I'm technical, but I'm not a coder. So you're trying to stay engaged, right? And everybody's telling you, learn to code, and all that stuff, right? And if you don't learn to code, then you can't contribute to Bitcoin and everything. And you know what? I had already done this career, right, of being a troubleshooter and technical support. I wasn't interested in any of that. However, Lightning comes along, and this is much more up my alley. You've got microcontrollers, you've got images that you can burn onto SD cards and go through setups and stuff like that. And, just like running basic commands in like in a command window, in a terminal window, like this is what I like. I'm like, okay, this is good stuff for me. And so I took to Lightning. And I was actually, and that's why I started essentially the Lightning Node Roundtable, right? Because I was running the Raspy Blitz, which at this point now, it still exists, thank God. Their team roots all. I feel terrible. I'm forgetting the other gentleman, but there's like three other people that handle that project, and these guys are just absolute beasts. Open noms. Yeah. Anyways, and that was like one of the first do-it-yourself Lightning node implementations that somebody with a lower level of technical capability could run. There was one before that called the Raspy Bolt, which was made by Staticus 3000. I don't think too many people know who he is anymore, but again, solid Bitcoiner. I believe he worked for Swissbox. Anyways. Mm-hmm. He made the first do-it-yourself Lightning node implementation, and you had to compile scripts. And I was not interested. And I tried it. I got it to run eventually, but man, I was like, I'm not running this permanently, So as soon as the Raspy, and I feel bad, I respect Staticus's work, and anybody who did work on that, if it wasn't for you guys, right, we stand on the shoulders of giants. I appreciate it. I just suck. So when Raspy Blitz came out, I was like, this is my jam. And that got me through another piece of the bear market, right? Because now all of a sudden I'm talking to these devs every month. They're sitting down with me and they're talking about what they're building. And so while you've got all these numbers guys, right? Like these influencer accounts that are like, Bitcoin's going to zero and like nobody cares and Bitcoin's dead again. These guys are building like champs. Right? These guys are sitting there like, I just added this feature. All right, we're building something called, we're going to add join market to it. We're going to add this, how about we try to turn this image into a virtual machine image? Can you test it? So it's like, this is not the language and the behavior of something dying. This is the language and behavior of passionate people building in something growing. How can you be bearish, right? It's like, how can you be bearish? Yeah. And man, this was, so yeah, indeed, selfish motivation, right? We are after all individuals, and to deny that we are selfish as individuals, that's just being, human hypocrisy, right?
Yeah, no, that is very interesting. And of course we love on here the tangents. It's always great to hear all the different stories.
Sorry.
No, it's great. It's great. Going back to the podcast, the name "Fun with Bitcoin." Obviously, that's a choice. You could have done anything. So why did you choose "Fun with Bitcoin"? Was it to kind of like get people involved, to make it kind of softer, like to orange pill people?
Correct. So, yeah, okay. So it's two parts. Number one, oh, I feel terrible. I was like, I totally blanking out on the name of, no. Okay. Big Bang Theory. Have you ever heard of that show? Okay.
Yeah.
So they had an episode where Sheldon does fun with flags. Okay. And so I was a big fan of Big Bang Theory, number one. And number two, I wanted to make it approachable because, again, so this, keep in mind, this is because of the way I learned about Bitcoin, right? So I come to Bitcoin Twitter and it's all the learn to code and all of this like really complex language that I was not used to, right? Like, because I'm not like some encryption guy. And at the time when I came to Bitcoin, it was much more technical people that were in the space. So you'd be listening to these podcasts, right? A perfect example, okay, is have you ever listened to Stefan Livera?
Yes.
Right? Like the guy interviews every dev that has ever worked on Bitcoin. It's amazing. Okay. Known Stefan for years, like, so my point is that the fact that he stays awake through some of those conversations, I am amazed. Okay. And I'm not trying to be mean in any way. It just has to do with, look, sometimes you're in the right headspace for a technical conversation, right? And you really want to listen. And other times it's just killing you, right? So, and I noticed that there really wasn't this kind of like easygoing, more about like just personable type of content, more pleb, right? Like just we're everyday people. Like all these guys have specialized knowledge. What about the guys who don't have specialized knowledge, right? What about them? Maybe they want to talk about Bitcoin too. And so this is also part of the reason why I called it Fun with. So the original name, you didn't find that, huh? Surprised.
No.
Surprised. Yeah. So the original name was Fun with Crypto because I was a shitcoin.
Oh.
Right. That lasted all of like maybe 3 weeks. Right? Like, yep. That's what it was because back then, right? And the key was this. I'll never forget this. In my first episode, right? I even explain how I'm like, and this is and I can look back on it now and I can be like, yeah, this was just me doing mental gymnastics and coping. But I was like, look, we all know that Bitcoin is the king. But these other coins, they have good use cases and they have good technology. Right? Like, dude, it was like, this is it. It's the mental gymnastics. Okay. And I'll just add one last piece to this, to the Fun with Bitcoin thing. The way that I was able to destroy use cases is because I worked in access control, right? Those keyless entry systems, elevator systems, all of this type of stuff, right? So we had an integration with a company. The ticker symbol is CVC, okay? Or the coin is called Civics, okay? Now, the company I worked for had an integration to do IDs, right? Guest IDs. Like, I don't know if you've ever gone through this, but you go to a building and you have to sign in and they give you like a little temporary card. Yeah. So the system that generates the temporary card for the guest, that was the Civics token. Okay. I was responsible for testing this integration between their software and ours. Essentially, the way that it worked is that you would sign in on their software and it would push the credential to ours so that you can print the card. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, did I say the word coin anywhere in that process? You didn't use a coin to do that. No. All it is an API call. That's all it is. It's an API call for data. And then it pushes data. That's it. Sorry, and it pulls data. That's all it does. It's pulling data. There's no token. The company I worked for never had to buy the coin in order to use the product. So immediately I realized this is all smoke and mirrors. Nobody needs these coins.
Yeah.
That's how I debunked it for myself, because I was actually working with a coin, and oh my God, did I take to Twitter after that? Because I was armed now, right? I was armed with hard evidence. Like nobody could ever convince me ever again that some coin is going to take over Bitcoin, because that's it. I had demystified it for real for myself. I actively worked with a coin. I never had to buy the token. Why would anyone hold this piece of... Anyways, so I took to Twitter and I started calling out Vinny Lingham, who was the CEO and who still is to this day. And he still shills this dog coin, getting people wrecked. Okay. And this thing, you go take a look at the chart, straight to zero, just down and to the right, minus 99.99%. Okay. So like, and he blocked me, and all of his partners blocked me and everything, because I was just in their threads all the time, constantly posting, right? Because I now had evidence that you guys are scammers. Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, that was huge, right? But you see again, right? Like all of this mattered. All of these little pieces mattered because it's all conviction building. So now we stand in 2026. I'm just like it's the meme, right, of James Franco, right, getting hung, right, first time. It's like, man, we've done this rodeo 1,000 times. It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, that is really interesting, because I feel like a lot of people in this space kind of don't. I mean, they know, but no one necessarily has their own story of how they discovered it and explained it. So it's really interesting to hear from somebody else's perspective that, you kind of explained it to yourself and discovered yourself why coins are so useless and terrible.
Absolutely. Yeah, man, absolutely.
Yeah, it's great. And also, I feel like there's definitely a similarity with how you have the fun with Bitcoin, and so you're trying to relate from just the average person, taking all the coding stuff and all the technical stuff and making it a lot more easy for the average person to understand Bitcoin. And I'm trying to take it from the average person in Bitcoin to basically someone who doesn't have a clue at all about Bitcoin, and in fact is the opposite and hates Bitcoin.
That's fantastic. So look, I just want to let you know it's a Sisyphean task, right? It's an uphill battle, and if you don't know what that is, right, and you're pushing the boulder up. Look, that's just what it is. Just be prepared to fail constantly, okay? And it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference, because at the end of the day, the people that choose to understand will be better off for it. Okay? They really will. I just wanted to add another thing, though. So right now, I mean, obviously, I haven't done fun with Bitcoin. The last episode I ever recorded was with fellow memer Coinicarus. He's an awesome Bitcoin memer. He's low key now. He's not so much on social media that much anymore. But Pleb Underground is just completely different, right? Pleb Underground, it's more about the daily happenings, right? It's more like edutainment or like infotainment. It's more about my perspective on different, the different topics, the different things that are happening. Also, making fun of the hopium, right? Making fun of all of these charts, and just kind of like offering like a bit of a refreshing, like so many people take themselves so seriously, right? And it's like, none of us are getting out of this alive, so it's like, for me, at the very least, this should be entertaining, right? I should be having fun with this. And I guess you could see, right, it's a little bit of the fun with Bitcoin never left. It just kind of morphed over into a video show, So I kind of changed it up, and now it's a video show. Sometimes we interview people, but not that often. Not that often.
Yeah.
It's we try.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, yeah, it's a great show. But for the final question of Fun with Bitcoin, who was your favorite guest on there?
Oh. You make me call people out. Okay, I got to try to think back now. Hold on a second, because I interviewed a lot of people.
I mean, the person that we both had on Hodl Tarantula.
Yeah. Yeah, we both had Hodl Tarantula on, and we had him on Pleb Underground. We interviewed him live at TabConf 2025, and we had him on like a couple of weeks ago to talk about sovereign hybrid computing. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's good
yeah.
people. He's definitely good people.
He's great.
I've known him for a very long time. See, so he's a great example of somebody who just he just does the work, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? There's a very big difference between the salesman and the picks and shovels guys. Like you can tell, you know what I mean? He's like a picks and shovel guy. But to answer your question, my favorite interview, I think, how about this? It's my most memorable one. Was the interview with Francis Pulio from Bull Bitcoin. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you interviewed Francis?
Well, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So he's a great person. He's a great person to interview. He is somebody. So he's originally from the same. I have to flex it, right? Like we're both from Montreal, so I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that because he made something kick ass, and he's got like a solid attitude, and I appreciate it. In terms of, I'm just referring to Bitcoin, right? It's not like a big like endorsement for everything that a person is. We're talking about Bitcoin, you know, and like this guy just kills it. His Bull Bitcoin. So when I was moving over to when I was moving, I had to do some. This is a different story. I had to do some. I had to move funding over from Canada to the U.S. and Bull Bitcoin saved my life, truly. Okay. Wow. My money would have been stuck there if it wasn't for Bull Bitcoin. Okay. These guys, because I had an account in Canada, right? An account in the US, and there was a lot of blockage going on, and Bull Bitcoin saved my life. But the piece that I wanted to say was that he understands, he's able to explain Bitcoin philosophically because it's very important, right? Bitcoin has multiple aspects, right? There's the mathematical aspect, the quote unquote the security, the fact that it solves the general Byzantine's problem, right? The double spend problem. But there's also a philosophical aspect to Bitcoin, as you know, right? Like there's a lot of like if you ever read Dergigi's 21 Lessons, I mean that is a really good one. And if you don't know who Dergigi is, he is one of the original Bitcoin, I'd say a Bitcoin orange pillar. I had him on 3 times, I believe, on the Fun with Bitcoin podcast. He is definitely worth, you should listen to those interviews with him. You might want to have him on your show. Yeah. He is absolutely awesome. Anyways, he wrote 21 Lessons, and essentially it's like themed to Alice in Wonderland. You know, so it's really cool. So it's like going down the rabbit hole. Right. But it's like, so going down the rabbit hole and you're the rabbit and you've got the clock. It's what he did was magical. Right. And nobody else will do anything like that ever again. But Francis turned me on to a text that really touched me. And it's called The Remnant. And it's that forever changed the way. Just the way that I look at Bitcoin evangelizing. I know that some people, and again, right, I'm not judging this, right? Some people believe that what's most important is that you get out to as many people as possible by any means necessary. It doesn't matter what you do, if you're scamming or not. Everything is good. Everything is good for Bitcoin. You do whatever it takes. Okay, the means justifies the ends. I'm not one of those people who believes in that, and that's to my own detriment. Because the people that believe in that, they do very well materially. But to me, what I learned from that text is that it just doesn't matter. You don't have to be the most popular. Just make sure that your message is out there. And so, call it a cope maybe, but I appreciated that cope. You know, I was like, yeah, I like that cope.
Yeah, I like it too. I think it's most important to be successful with yourself and your own energy and be giving out positive light and being true to yourself. I think a lot of people that go down the path of focusing on money, getting it any way possible and not, being true to themselves and having a positive effect on the world and giving out positive energy. I think you know, at some point they fall short in life, and you can look back and
Mhm.
say, well, I've made loads of money, but at the end of the day, I think, you know, how did you make all that money?
Sadly, I've gotten to know a few people that it didn't, all the money in the world isn't filling the emptiness. Because and that's the key, right? So this is something else that this kind of goes back to your question of, do you think you'd be a different person, right, if you found Bitcoin 10 years earlier? So something that you end up learning when you're no longer worried about paychecks, and you're no longer worried about living paycheck to paycheck, or how you're going to pay this bill and that bill. So guess what? The money doesn't, as the money doesn't fix the psychological problems. It doesn't fix the emotional problems. It doesn't fix your worldview. And it doesn't fix the image of yourself that you've created for yourself. So if you weren't enough before you got, wealthy, then guess what? You are not going to be enough with the money either. And the problem is, okay, the problem is this. Once you get to that stage, there are no other elements to hide the truth from you. So whereas before, when you were struggling for the paycheck and you were pushing and pushing and pushing, you didn't have to see the mirror. The mirror was hidden behind all the other furniture, but now that furniture is cleared. It's just you and this mirror, because money has cleared all the noise away. Your ability, right? Like, because that's another thing too, right? When you're constantly worried about bills and you're constantly stressing about how you're going to survive and this and that, do you know what else gets impacted? Your ability to visualize, your ability to be creative, your ability to see into the future. That's by design. You keep everybody stressed, and there's not a single person that can think clearly. So just imagine, right? You got a whole bunch of people running around pumping cortisol, right? Like they're totally stressed out, and at the same time, they're eating like they're watching stuff that is telling them that they're not good enough. Women are hearing that they're too fat, not pretty enough, right? Guys are hearing that you're too much of a dude and you need to be less of a dude, and toxic masculinity, and filling your head, like all of everybody's heads with complete nonsense to make you feel shameful in your own skin and all of this stuff. It's no surprise that people can't think clearly, right? So my point is that when you take out one of the biggest obstacles to thinking clearly, now all you see is the canvas, and it's going to be whatever you're putting out there. So again, the original point, if you aren't enough without the money, you will not be enough with the money. And I've seen it happen firsthand. And it's a realization that when you come to that, maybe there's two things that happen. Maybe one, you decide to face it and you say, I want to improve. I want to learn about me, and I want to learn why I think this way. Or you continue to deny it and you surround yourself with new noise in order to hide the truth from yourself.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's a tough one. But money ain't
Yeah,
going to fix the problems.
exactly. I don't think being materialistically wealthy has got any advantages over spiritually wealthy or energetically wealthy. I think a lot of that is, yeah, again, material. It's what you're going to look back on at the end of your life and think, well, did I live a good life, or did I just spend it upsetting people, ruining lives, and making myself better? Or did I help everyone that I could and do the best for a lot of people? And that's really what it comes down to.
It absolutely is. The truth of the matter is that everything that we actually desire, we already have. We already, and we get it for free, right? The fact that you're alive, right? The fact that you're, knock on wood, you're healthy, you're able, right? Like, this is, all of that is potentiality. All of that is potentiality. All the external things that we desire, they're they're all just temporary. And don't forget something else, right? Something else I ended up learning as well. Doesn't matter what you buy, you become a custodian. Everything you own or everything you rent on this planet, you are a custodian of it. So when you buy the car, it's not just the price of the car. It's the price of maintenance. It's the price of your time, right? You're not just exchanging work, right? You're exchanging other things for that. You're now maintaining this thing. It's the same thing with the house. And I'm not telling people that they shouldn't be driving cars or having homes or anything like that. It's like everybody needs to live somewhere. You need, like, look, Maslow's pyramid of needs. Sorry?
The hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, the hierarchy of needs. Like, look, we still need shelter, we still need food, we still need clothing, right? Like, unfortunately, it is what it is. So, like, that isn't going to change. You know, it's when essentially, it's when there's a happy medium where essentially you're just trying to fill a bottomless pit, right? So what I'm trying to say is there's a difference between wants, needs, and desires. Yeah. Desires are something that you truly long for. Okay, this is something like, this is deeper than just like a pair of shoes, like a fancy, I don't know what, like I have no idea, like anything, more like it's fancier than a car, any of that stuff. It's something that you truly desire, right? It's like, what do I desire? Well, I desire command of my time, right? Like I desire personal freedom to the highest degree that I can exert it. My wants are things like, I'd like a coffee, like I want to go here to get this meal, or I want to go on a vacation, right? And then, of course, you have your needs, right? The things that you actually need. And the problem is then when you fill your entire life, right? Essentially what happens is the opportunity cost becomes you end up trading what you desire for what you want, okay? You end up giving up the thing that you long for the thing that you want on the moment. And this sometimes comes from not being able to see and have enough courage to persist in what you're doing in order to get to what you desire. So instead, most people just fast food it, right? And just get what they want. But then what happens when you get what you want? It's a dopamine hit. It goes away. Right? People get buyer's remorse. A lot of times, you go and you get yourself a brand new car or something like that. And 3 months later, you hate yourself for it. Not even 3 months later, sometimes a couple of hours later, Yeah. And that's because it wasn't a real desire. It was just a want, a frivolous want. And now the fun of it is the anticipation. The fun of it is getting the item, right? Like, but then once you have it, that's it. It's gone. And that's why you really got to be able to pick out your wants and desires, Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think me and my mum were talking about this earlier, the high time preference that a lot of the younger generations seem to have. And it's all about kind of wanting to have it right now without actually working for it, which, it's if you get something quickly and other people take time to work for it and you just get it like that, it won't be true. And this is what I feel like, for example, people that take Ozempic, for example, to get skinnier, that, in the short run, you lose the weight quickly, but it's got terrible effects on you compared to someone who's gone on walks, started to eat healthier. They will be in a much better place than the person who took Ozempic, basically. And this is a huge thing that, younger generations need to understand better, is that low time preference will always save you in the future.
You're absolutely right. And unfortunately, we've become so this is interesting, right? So it's not just philosophically, because philosophically, we are a fast food culture, okay? Like this is what's become. But also at the same time, the money is broken. So it's like, okay, so look, so we have multiple forces all happening at once, right? Like, and you kind of have to have that happen because essentially, as the money breaks, you can't have people doing proof of work. Okay. Like, yes, you can with Bitcoin, but you can't have them doing proof of work in the system because what ends up happening is they realize they aren't getting the proof for their work. So you got to mask it, right? And you got to mask it with the fast food culture. You got to mask it with cheaper products, right? Cheaper lifestyles, right? But they have to be sold as desirable, right? They have to be sold as something that people want, right? Like that this is something that you're looking for, and that's just it's not the case. And so unfortunately, we end up in the situation where we are now, where the money's completely broken, right? And also at the same time, everybody, I'm painting with a broad brush, but the culturally, we've moved to not only accept this, but expect this. So when you look at, you just talked about Ozempic, right? Well, that's what's happened with, with medicine to a certain extent. Now, it's not to say that we haven't had any medical breakthroughs. Of course, there are genuine medical breakthroughs. However, there's also a bunch of total, and of course, I'm not a doctor. I'm not pretending to be a doctor or anything like that, so it's not medical advice, But what I am saying is that we have three modes of practice. We cut, we burn, we poison. Okay, those are the three things that we do. It is not lucrative for a doctor to tell you to eat better. It is, however, lucrative for him to prescribe you pills. So again, nobody is better than their incentives, right? And even the doctor is motivated to be high time preference, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, look, he can waste his time telling you to eat better and not get a penny for it. I mean, or just get the minimum fee, or he can write you up a prescription and he could be one step closer to that island getaway that GlaxoSmithKline has given away, or whatever pharmaceutical company is giving away, if you sell enough of this, because they do that. They do that. So.
Well, I mean, it is the system as designed. I think a majority, 99% of medicine nowadays is treating symptoms, not actually what the root of the cause is. Yeah, exactly.
Correct.
And if you treat symptoms, it doesn't work. You can treat symptoms as much as you want, but if you don't solve the root issue, those symptoms are going to keep coming until there's nothing left.
It's all just Band-Aids. I mean, and that's what it is. And again, right, why only treat the symptom? Because the root cause is way too expensive and not lucrative at all, right? Like think about it.
Very profitable.
Sorry?
The symptoms are really profitable.
They're the most profitable, right? They're the biggest bang for the buck. I don't have to deal with the root cause, and I get to profit off of the cure, which it's not a cure,
And continuously do that because you're not solving the root problem.
That's right. That's exactly right. And they can keep, pointing the fingers at other, at other causes for the issue. But hey, it's too tough to figure out. Just buy these pills.
Yeah.
It's not lucrative to tell somebody to exercise every day. It's not lucrative to tell somebody to drink water every day. It's not lucrative to tell them not to shop in the middle of the grocery store because everything in the middle of the grocery store is designed to just make you sick. It's none of that's lucrative.
No.
So yeah, it's who was it? I think it's one of the Amoose brothers. He wrote Fiat Food. I didn't read that one yet, but I have a good friend of mine that read it. It's the brother of the guy who wrote the Bitcoin Standard, Saifedean's brother. Or maybe it's Saifedean's brother that wrote that book. Somebody I know in the Bitcoin space Reddit and raves about it, essentially about how broken, how broken our food is, how broken the food system is, and essentially, how it's poisoning us. And again, right, it's lucrative, right? Like people sit there. It's kind of funny, right? People sit there and they imagine this like evil, right? This evil personage behind the scene that's ha ha ha. I'm gonna make you sick so I can profit. Look, I know that people want to imagine that because it makes them feel better about some type of retribution or something like that. But you know what it really is? It's a dude with a family and he's paying bills and he's got a board of directors to answer to and he's given a bunch of different options with pros and cons and he picks from a list. It's like, and again, that's not excusing or absolving the person. It's understanding reality as it is. And I'm not saying that there are no people that don't have evil desires or desires to hurt others. Of course, there are people who desire to hurt others. But to imagine that this is the case for every single person that is profiting in any way from fiat, it's like, that's not how this works. These people are literally just, I learned this when I worked at my normie job. People manage to the metric. They work to the metric. Okay, so I had 6 or 8 guys that worked on my team. I would give them a metric. They would meet that metric. It's no different. It is no different for a CEO. It's no different for anybody in any job. They meet the metric. So if you tell somebody you can only spend this amount of money and you have to produce this product with these qualities, then they are going to manage to that metric. It's that simple.
Yeah.
It's like we want things to change, but the reality is, and as corny as it is, things don't change. We do. So until, as individuals, we specifically choose to make these decisions, these better quality decisions, we're simply just going to suffer the same fates over and over again, right? Because again, it's not history that repeats itself, it's human behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's going to be a clip. I mean, that was incredible what you just said. Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks.
Absolutely incredible.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're actually going to go and do a more of a deep dive on the Pleb Underground now. So, for people that don't know what the Pleb Underground is, what is it and who's it for and who's in it?
Okay. So the Pleb Underground is, all right, who's it for? It's mostly, at this point I figured it out, because I didn't know who I was making that show for. I was really just making it for myself. But it is for people that are already into Bitcoin. Like, you're most likely finding Pleb Underground after you've already gone through a lot of the other channels. After you found the TFTCs and the BTC sessions and stuff like that, you usually because again, right, BTC sessions is educational stuff, right? For the most part. He also does some infotainment as well. But again, it's much more, Pleb Underground is much more of, you are already into Bitcoin. You've been listening to the influencer narratives for years, and you're possibly tired of it, and you might just want to hear something a little bit more refreshing and slightly different than what you've been hearing. So that's definitely more the theme of Pleb Underground. It's kind of like, I'd say it's infotainment, right? Because obviously I cover the news every single day, and I always cover, I cover a lot of hopium in terms of, charts, where's Bitcoin going, this and that. But I also cover a lot of the relevant news, right? Like right now, the Strait of Hormuz and the state of Illinois and the taxes and the EU with the, with the cash bans and, you know what I mean? So this is the type of stuff that I cover. But yeah, the audience it's not really if you're not into Bitcoin, chances are, it's going to sound like that show's not going to make any sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I could tell you, I could tell you, my father watches the show, and he used to tell me at the beginning, I don't understand what you're saying most of the time. And one of my old work friends, who I still speak to today, from my normie job, he also said the same thing. He's like, I don't understand half of what you're saying. He's like, but the stuff I do get, he's like, it sounds good. so,
Yeah.
so it's a niche show. The people that are in it is Sir Ulrich and Humble Bitcoiner. And those are, so like we do Bitcoin tonight, all three of us, right? So that's once a week. That's actually going to be tonight. But every day, Monday through Friday, I do Pleb Underground live, which is just our daily live show, which lasts anywhere from 30 minutes to a little under an hour. And that's just me solo. So I do that solo every day, and then once a week we do Bitcoin tonight, all of us together. But I mean, like, for all intents and purposes, Pleb Underground is, in terms of ownership, so to speak, it's me.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I think that's kind of one of the bridges I'm trying to fill. As I said, where your dad said, he doesn't understand anything that you're saying. This is what I mean. I need to get people in so that they can understand what we're saying, because I think even the stuff that we're saying, it's not too difficult to understand, but I think, there may be some parts that the average person or people my age wouldn't get. So I think in the future, I'm working on just toning it down and making it easy and kind of strong and soft to understand for the average person, really.
Hats off to you for that, by the way. It is definitely not easy. Something to always remember, right? Because when you're looking at doing stuff like this, evangelizing, you have to think of yourself, right? When somebody approaches you to try to sell you something or to tell you about something, how do you react, right? And that can give you a little bit of insight as to how to approach people. And not that I'm the best at that or anything like that. I've probably turned more people away from Bitcoin than I have orange pilled them. And that's okay. I don't really care. I'm not here to make friends or placate egos. But I will say this, right? The majority of people that I have gotten into Bitcoin, they didn't come to it through self-sovereignty. They don't give a shit about fighting the state. Okay? They don't care about any of these things. Everybody's just a squirrel trying to get a nut. Okay? Yeah. Everybody's just trying to get paid. They're just trying to make it to the next day. So most of the people that you are going to bring into Bitcoin, right? You can spend hours and hours talking about self-custody, which they frankly don't give a shit about, the majority of people. Not to say you shouldn't talk about it, but those people who want that will come to you, okay? They're going to figure that out. But NGU is the easiest way to explain it. It's just about the number go up, okay? It's very simple. It lets you introduce the money printing, right? But it doesn't do it in a way where it makes the person, because that's something else too, right? So people don't like to feel like idiots, right? Think about that, right? When somebody is talking to you and they, if they're trying to explain something to you and they start treating you like an idiot, you're going to be a lot less receptive. So, right? People don't want to feel like idiots. And the other thing is that people also want to believe that their ideas come from them. You're more receptive to having conviction about something when you've internalized it and I don't know how I could explain it. It's like you've created it for yourself, right? It's like you can tell me about Bitcoin, but until I have the aha moment, it doesn't matter. I don't see what you're seeing. You know what I mean? I don't feel what you're feeling until I have my own aha moment. People like to have that.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. That's a very important part of understanding. I know for myself, my mum went on about Bitcoin for years and years and years, and I didn't really get it until it made sense to me. So
that's right.
Very, very important.
So what was it that made sense to you? What was the situation?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah. It's kind of, okay, this is going to sound a bit mad, but it was kind of the answer to all the conspiracy theories, basically. So every kind of thing that I was like, yeah, but is this real? Like, does it actually make sense theoretically? Bitcoin kind of explained, yeah, like it actually does.
That is hilarious.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Yeah, it really look, it really is, right? And that's kind of the first meme that people go through. Bitcoin fixes everything, right? Fix
yeah.
the money, fix the world. Now look, how long have you been on your Bitcoin journey?
Um, I not crazy long, about a year.
Okay, okay. So you've
I
never
mean,
actually gone.
a lot longer, but kind of really focused and deep dived into it with everything about a year. Yeah,
We'll say about a year with like solid conviction that you're
yeah,
like growing your conviction. Okay. So is this, I'm assuming, I'm going to then assume that this is your first bear market,
yeah,
so to
yeah.
speak. Okay. So, okay. This bear market is nothing compared to what was experienced in the past. I
I
know the
know.
number is scary. I know the number is scary. It's like 127 down to 60K. Oh my God. Like, dude, this is nothing. Okay. This is totally the James Franco meme. Okay. This is like, yeah, first time. And it is. And I congratulate you for it. You are getting to buy Bitcoin at these levels that we were purchasing it at 6 years ago, 5 years ago. So this is in fact a good place to buy. You know, this is a place where I'm even buying Bitcoin when I can. So it's yeah. Cheers, cheers for that. The other piece of it is this. Okay, you probably haven't gone through, and I'm just assuming, but you probably haven't gone through the disillusion of the memes yet. So when the journey begins, the memes, like you just said, Bitcoin's the answer to all the conspiracy theories.
Yeah,
As you continue to learn and grow, and again, it depends because look, if you're a person that isn't thinking critically and you're not questioning the narratives that you're being told about Bitcoin, then unfortunately you might end up more in like the hopium slop type of belief, right? Bitcoin's going to $6 million. Samson Mao and his Omega candles. Look, Samson Mao's been talking about those Omega candles for 10 years. Okay. So, dude, it was all going to happen last cycle, 3 cycles ago. So just
yeah,
perspective. Okay. The all of that stuff is fun. Okay, all of that stuff is fun. But the reason why I'm explaining this to you is that there is, in many cases, when you're being honest with yourself, okay, there is a right now you're going up, you're going in the incline, but eventually, right, because it's human behavior that doesn't change. And eventually there's going to be a lull. Eventually there's almost a disillusionment, which is what I explained. Right? Now, like I said, some people they don't go through that. When they come to Bitcoin and they come here to be salesmen, they never go through that. They don't go through disillusionment because they're just salesmen. Like they don't care, right? Like it's Bitcoin's always amazing. It's always that. But if you are more of like, I'm here for the revolution. I believe in changing money, separating money from state. I believe in you bought the narrative that Bitcoin, right? That you're separating, that you're fixing the money, right? To fix the world. Then you're going to end up realizing very quickly that these narratives are just fluffy narratives to get you through the door, right?
yeah,
Like, yes, fix the money, fix the world is accurate to a certain extent, okay?
yeah,
The 21 million cap is accurate to a certain extent. There's actually only going to be less Bitcoin, but it doesn't sound good to say 20.999999 to the 56th nth, right? Like, it doesn't. So you say 21 million. Like, so there's a bunch of these things. And I just want you to like, look, you're going to most likely experience that. And if you do, just don't be surprised by it, right? Like it's okay. It's okay to go through that, right? It doesn't stay forever. Eventually you start to realize why you understood those memes, why they resonated with you. And it's okay that it isn't this kumbaya pie in the sky thing, like it's okay that it's not. Why? Because it is doing exactly what it is intended to do. It limits the government's ability to with you. It limits the financial system's ability to rob you blind. And one of my favorite themes from when I first got into the space was Bitcoin isn't a get rich quick scheme. It's a don't get poor slowly scheme.
yeah.
That's what it
that's
is.
great.
You know,
That is,
and that
yeah,
is true. That's a meme that has stuck. I've been here for 10 years, and it is true. So,
it is very true. Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, going back to the Pleb Underground, the word pleb obviously in Bitcoin Twitter is really interesting because obviously outside of Bitcoin it's an insult. Like you don't want to be called a pleb, but inside Bitcoin it's kind of like a badge of honor. So when did that actually like happen, and what does pleb mean to you now that it doesn't mean to someone who's my age?
okay, so now we're going into the pleb lore. All right. So yeah, I was actually lucky for me. I was there at the beginning of when Bitcoin plebs appeared. I'm part of the original. Okay, so we're gonna go back. 2019, something like that. A bunch of these influencers, right? Like the influencers, like guys like Dan Held, Peter McCormack, and a bunch of other guys, right? They started to push out these narratives. Nick Carter also, right? Like, so today, Nick Carter is significantly less relevant in Bitcoin. However, in 2018, 2019, he had one of the biggest accounts and wrote a lot of articles about Bitcoin, positive articles, right? And did a lot of the cheerleading for Bitcoin on Twitter. So anyways, so a lot of these influencers, they started to not just push out narratives that were less than helpful, but they also started to shame people that weren't part of their influencer class, right? And essentially what ended up happening was that there was a bit of a pushback, right? Like regular Bitcoiners just didn't feel like taking this, like screw you. Who the F are you? Now, at one point, there was this kind of influencer group that got together and they had, okay, so this is going to go into the carnivore dinners. Okay, so this is something from earlier, right? Like I'm sure in Bitcoin you've already heard the carnivore theme and the iron, the cast iron pans and the no seed oils and it's like there's a whole bunch of in all fairness, it's not very much different than multi-level marketing and cults. Okay, in fairness, it's what it is. Okay, now when the carnivore theme began, that. They kind of like, again, right? They made it very elitist. The people that were, that were doing this, all these, we're going to these carnivore suppers and we're having this carnivore roundtable and blah, 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 these secret meetings. And so a couple of plebs got together, specifically Pirate Beach Bum, Owie Dieter Bob, who is the Angry Chihuahua, and guys like even Alberto. And if you've ever seen that account, right? Right. Like he's old school. And anyways, so and Hodl Anot even at the time, right? Hodl Anot, yeah, that's right. I was actually the first person to ever interview Hodl Anot. They on Fun with Bitcoin. That interview with Hodl Anot is the first interview with him. Nobody had ever interviewed him before. But anyway, so what ended up happening was that they Pirate Beach Bum, I believe it was, put out a post. He took a picture of a taco dinner, like just a big plate of tacos. Okay, and he insinuated that the plebs got together, and had a taco dinner, and it was making fun of them, right? It was making fun of these carnivore dinner guys, right? And so they they started getting upset, and so we started amplifying that signal, right, about the taco plebs, and we started calling ourselves Taco Plebs. And there's a Taco Pleb group on Telegram. I mean, it's pretty dead at this point. But essentially what ended up happening was it began as a group on Twitter, okay? And we were like 10 of us. It grew to like 50 people we're talking in seconds. Like every normie Bitcoiner that was on Twitter was like, I'm a pleb, okay? And so that group blew up. We essentially had to tear it down. And what happened was Owie Dieter Bob started a Telegram group for the taco plebs. And essentially what would end up happening was that all these influencers would try to come in and try to steer the conversation in this Telegram group, trying to tell people, you know, how you should look at things. You shouldn't be arguing against this influencer. You shouldn't be sitting there and like making things worse for Bitcoin. You know, all kinds of stupid narratives, right? You need to do what you're told. And they would come in there and they would get their asses handed to them. Peter McCormack would go in there and just spend like an hour getting berated, just berated. And the whole point of it was that it was a pushback on the influencers at the time. And it resonated with a lot of people. Now, unfortunately, though, there is the aspect of, because at this point, somehow, and it doesn't surprise me, but pleb has been co-opted. It's been co-opted in different ways. I noticed that there's a bunch of BIP 110 proponent people. They seem to think that BIP 110 is standing up for the plebs. However, I'm a pleb and I'm not a BIP 110 proponent. So it's got nothing to do with plebs. It's all of that stuff. This is just nonsense noise. Yeah, it's got nothing to do with any of that. But pleb, really, is just a commoner. Right? Like, you're just a commoner. And I get, to the outside world, it may be considered an insult, but it's only an insult if you know, you believe in these imaginary lines. A pleb is really, in my eyes, I think the easiest way to define it is somebody who doesn't exalt themselves for understanding that, you know, what God has given each person equally. Like, you're just an individual. You're just a person. Like, you understand, right? Like, you understand that, you know, you're just as special as everyone else. And that means nobody is special, because everybody is special, right? Think about it. If everybody's a multi-billionaire, who's poor? Is there even such thing as a multi-billionaire anymore? Does it even matter if everybody, like, it's like people just don't, like, I don't know. You got to think of these things, you know, you're just a commoner hodling Bitcoin, you know, like that's what it is. That's what pleb, you know, that's what pleb really is. So a pleb can truly be anybody. It could, you know, as long as you're not trying to be an influencer or, you know, trying to, you know, grow a massive following so that you can change Bitcoin or something like that. It's really just a commoner. That's the easiest definition.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah, that makes it very clear for anyone not involved in the space. So yeah, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the Pleb Underground is built on volunteers and kind of, as you said, commoners in the Bitcoin space. So independent content creators putting in unpaid work because obviously they care. And in a world where basically everything's monetized and sponsored, that's like, it's radical. You know, no one else really kind of does that nowadays. So why does it work, and how don't the people burn out?
Yeah. So the people is me, essentially, right? Ulrich and Humble Bitcoiner, I mean, and again, they come on the show once a week, right? And I'm not diminishing that work because I know exactly what it takes. But what I'm saying is that it doesn't really work, right? It works because I keep it alive, right? Like, I pay to keep it going, right? Like, I pay for the, you know, for everything, right? And Humble and Sir Ulrich are also paying by providing their time, right? We do have one sponsor, right? And he does pay us, but it's really not very much, right? And essentially, right, the Pleb Underground is, you know, it's like at this point, it's just a hobby, so to speak, in terms of like, you know, would I classify it as a business? Like, yeah, you know, I write off all my expenses, right? So that I can take advantage of the tax code. But I mean, like, it's not that we're not looking to have sponsors. We absolutely are. The difference is that, you know, we're not salesmen. We're not salesmen. We're not trying to be salesmen. I'm not a salesman, even though that's probably what I should be doing, something like this, right? So The sponsors that we do take, we're willing to take signing devices, right, as sponsorships. Our current sponsor, Archimedes Emporium, he makes the Bitcoin clock out of aluminum, right? It's art. It can't wreck people. What we wouldn't take mining pools as sponsors, because obviously if you take a mining pool as a sponsor, you're now shilling their narrative. You're paid to shill their narrative for whatever it is. You're also paid to shill their service, which is fine, right? To each their own, but that's just everybody draws their line in the sand. Also, don't take lending services, right? We don't take exchanges as sponsors either. So this is very self-limiting. And in fairness, right? I'm not doing this to be virtuous or anything like that. It has to do, it's very selfish, okay? I want to be able to sleep at night. I don't feel comfortable shilling loan products to people. I don't feel comfortable lying to people about Bitcoin for my sponsor. I don't feel comfortable doing any of that stuff. And so for me, I have to be able to feel comfortable. So what I do feel comfortable is talking about art. I feel comfortable shilling a physical product that people can receive and get in their hands, right? Because that way, if they want recourse, they can send it back, get their money back. If they don't want it, like, it's just, to me, it's just a matter of sleeping at night, right? This is nothing to do, like, I know a lot of times, like, people try to, you get people try to frame it as like virtuous and stuff like that. And it's like, or trying to be virtuous. It's like, no, it's got nothing to do with virtue. It just has to do with being able to sleep at night and what I'm comfortable doing. Yeah. I've been offered to shill absolute garbage, and I've turned it down every single time. So,
yeah.
And it's to my detriment. Just so you know, it's to my detriment, and it's to the detriment of Sir Ulrich and Humble. I am fortunate that both of those people do not rely on Pleb Underground for an income. And I do, like, once a year, I try to give them something, right? Because, like, to me, it's not you gotta get something, right? And the second that I can do more, I will. Like, look, for example, we're most likely going to be at the Midwest Bitcoin Conference, the Midwest Bitcoin Summit, coming up in Columbia, Ohio. And we're going to be, getting paid for that, right? Like, it's fantastic. So they're going to, you know what I mean? It's like my two partners, they're going to get paid, and I'm thrilled, So, like, this is it. Look, it starts slowly, right? And especially if you don't choose to bend the knee to these bigger organizations that are willing to give you checks to compromise on your message, then it's going to take longer. You know what, though? I already had a career. Like, that's the other thing too, which I've explained on other shows, which you don't know. Like, I already had a career. I was already very successful at my career. I managed other people. I started off as the lowest level of technical support, and by the time I finished my career, I was managing tier 3 support. So, you know what I mean? I went from being the guy at the bottom to the guy at the top, and I did it in 7 years. So I don't care about this whole, like, rising and becoming like some powerful voice that people need to fear and or respect and all this. That's ego-driven slop. I just like talking about Bitcoin. And if we can make a living out of it, that is fantastic. Just, like, as far as it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like what we were saying earlier in terms of, some people may take those sponsors and be physically wealthy, but not spiritually or energetically wealthy. And yeah, again, look back and think, why did I actually do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. It's again, so I don't know. I don't know how much you know about this, but between Fun with Bitcoin and Pleb Underground, I did Simply Bitcoin. So Nico and I started Simply Bitcoin, and then I left. And I left because I didn't like the direction it was going in. And this is not judgment against him. So you see how big it became? This is what he wanted, right? This is what he desired. I did not desire this. And in order to get to that point, he will most likely frame it differently, but he compromised. There were certain instances where, people were told to change their messaging to be more palatable for clicks and views. There was also other times where you had to censor people, censor them from speaking, right? So all of a sudden, right, like your sponsor is encroaching on your content. This is why it matters who you take money from. You know, it does. It does matter. So yeah. And that's So that's it. You know, I left that at the I think it was the end of in May or April, maybe it was April of 2022, something like that. And then I started Pleb Underground in like June or July of 2022. You know, and that's it. And you know, the rest is history. So look, I already had a seat at the table. I'm one of the very few people who simply stood up and walked away. I had no desire to be a part of some giant circle. I had no desire to be part of some massive marketing machine. You know, at one point we were shilling a service where the back end was a back end, right? Like the whole back end was entirely coining, and you just, you know, the mental gymnastic was, well, you know, they could only buy Bitcoin through that platform, so it's okay. Yeah. Right? So again, it's just compromising, right? And again, there is nothing wrong with compromise if you understand what you are sacrificing. If you are willing to pay the price, there is no tragedy. Yeah. I was not willing to pay the price. And there you go. So now I have to be willing to pay the price of my decision. And this is the price of my current decision, right? Like growth, not so fast. The messaging is not going to be catering to people's biases all the time, right? So you're not just telling things to people to make them happy. And people, for the most part, just want to be happy. They want to feel good about their decisions, right? They don't want to think for a second that, you know, maybe I'm being played by this ass hat and a suit and an orange tie. You know, people don't want to believe that. They want to believe that this rich guy, he wants to help me. You know, because we all know all the rich people and how much they want to help all the poor people. That's usually what they're doing. They're not enriching themselves further. No, of course not. Dude, it's just, yeah, it's a lot of, so yeah. I am willing to pay that price, and here I am paying the price and doing it happily.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to stay true to yourself. I think that's the most important thing, as we've already discussed. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. So now onto the Lightning Node Roundtable. So this is what I really want to talk about, because I think people who aren't deep into Lightning don't really know it exists. So obviously you convene a monthly roundtable where Lightning developers across the community come and hash out tech updates, hack sprints. How did that actually start?
Okay. So just that started when I was doing Fun with Bitcoin. And that started in, I believe it was early 2019 or late 2018. You know what? I think late 2018 was the first roundtable that I ever did. And the reason why I did that was because I was so amazed by the work that these guys were doing. And again, right? Nobody was being paid. These guys built a Lightning node from scratch, right? For people to download for free. For $0, right? Like this is the Bitcoin culture that I came from as well, right? So the idea of volunteering, doing the work with no payment was, you know, it's almost like, yeah, you know, like you do what you must, right? You do what you gotta. And I was inspired by these guys, and I wanted more people to know about these guys, and I wanted more people to know about Lightning, and also, selfishly, right, I wanted more people to watch my show. So I wanted to cover something, right? I wanted to cover something that other people weren't covering. While everybody was interviewing all of these massive accounts with influencers, right? Because so look, that's the other reason why you get less signal and more noise, is because, look, so you could interview someone like me who's going to tell you, like, the truth or reality, or you can get somebody like British Hoddle on your show, you know, who's got like 150,000 followers and is a complete scammer. And he is, okay? He is a total scammer. And he scammed with Forex or gold or whatever it was before Bitcoin. And there's tons of evidence of this. But guess what? When you have a big show and you need to keep the numbers up because you're also paying employees and you got it right, and you're also doing it for your own pocket, right?
Yeah.
You're more likely to platform a bigger account like that because you want the clicks and views. So these guys that were building Raspy Blitz, which was extremely important they started the do-it-yourself, like I said, they were the beginning of the do-it-yourself node implementations. Nobody was interviewing these guys. Nobody was talking to them. And it made no sense. So I wanted to talk to them and I wanted to bring them on the show. And again, like I said, selfishly, I wanted more people to watch the show. And selfishly, I also wanted, you know, some of the bigger accounts that I thought were important would recognize that I was doing quality work, you know, and that they would possibly amplify my signal. And this is where I learned another important lesson about this space, is that everybody wants you on their team, but they are not on yours.
Yeah.
They want you cheering for them. They're not cheering for you, though. I quickly realized that I was a cheerleader. See, so again, right, it's kind of like you can kind of see like people today that know me are like, you know, he always screams about the cheerleaders and cries about the Bitcoin cheerleaders. Well, yeah, that's because I got taken in by them myself, right? I did the thing. I retweeted their posts. I amplified their signal. And when it came time to amplify my signal, none of them were there to help. None of them chose to help. And again, I don't blame them for it. I learned a lesson from it. That's the difference. Yeah.
I mean, it is really important talking about those people in the Lightning Roundtable. I mean, I feel like they're almost unsung heroes. As you said, you know, people not interviewing them, it seems insane when what they've done is incredible and one of the most important things for Bitcoin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to go on to the story of us is the story of Bitcoin. So this section, you said on your site, quote, the story of us is the story of Bitcoin. And obviously that is a beautiful line. So could you unpack it for me and my audience who may not understand what you mean by that?
Which site did you get that from?
Um,
I just need to know.
I think it was on your About Me page.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm just making sure because there's an article that I wrote for Citadel 21 when Citadel 21 first started. I was in the third edition, and I was like, wait a second, is that part of my article? So yeah. So the reason why I wrote that is because I quickly began to realize, right, that, you know, Bitcoin. You know how people tell you that Bitcoin doesn't care? You know how you must have heard that before, right? Bitcoin doesn't care. Bitcoin doesn't care about the market. Bitcoin doesn't care about you. Bitcoin doesn't care about your feelings. So one of the big narratives from like 2018, 2017 was your feels, right? Like Bitcoin doesn't care about your feelings, right? So your feels. But you quickly realize that without humans, there is no Bitcoin. It doesn't matter. Like, we give it value. We make it do what it does. Okay? Like, we are the ones that bring importance to it. We are the ones that choose to converge on the shelling points of Bitcoin. We're the ones that choose to care about the hard cap. We're the ones that choose to care about the censorship resistance. This is why Bitcoin is the story of us. Right? Because essentially, right, like it's kind of like Bitcoin is also the story of how we take back our time from the time thieves, right? Like, so it's very intertwined. Like, this freedom tool that we have is just so precious and so important. And unfortunately, none of us are really going to know that. None of us, even the hodlers today, even people like me that sit there, say all the magic words, all the guys that are out living in the frickin' jungle off their Bitcoin. Nobody is really going to know until the world truly hits that breaking point. So, and the breaking point I'm talking about is that the entire monetary system actually unravels, right? Where you end up in the situation where the US dollar is now failing in real time, faster, and that you can see it. It's almost happening on a daily basis. We haven't reached escape velocity yet. We may never reach escape velocity. And in fairness, if we don't reach escape velocity, Bitcoin still wins. Because even if we don't reach escape velocity, Bitcoin will be the only way to escape all of these tyrannical mechanisms and this digital panopticon that they're building. So yeah, that's why I really believe that Bitcoin is the story of us, because it's the story of how we get our freedom back.
Absolutely, and it's going to be an incredible story in the future. I think it's going to be awesome when we finally, I mean, whether or not it's in our lifetimes, when we see the mass adoption and the freedom that it will create and the escape that it will give to everyone, really.
For the people that choose to, right? Bitcoin is for everyone. It's not, what is it? Bitcoin is for anyone, but it's not for everyone. I forget which one that goes, but that's essentially what it is, right? Like, that's the beautiful thing about a volunteer network. You either choose to participate in Bitcoin and therefore are bestowed the results of its qualities, or you choose not to. That's the beauty of it. That's one of the reasons I love Bitcoin, right? And this is where you get the meme Bitcoin is for enemies. Because guess what? You may not agree with everything I do, but I'm using Bitcoin. And I may not agree with everything you do, but you're using Bitcoin. And guess what? We both agree on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's all that really matters. That alone conveys a minimum set of values that you and I both agree on, no matter what.
Yeah.
And those values, in my eyes, help maintain the social contract.
Yeah. Bitcoin brings peace, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would be the best advice that you're seeing right now that more people should be paying attention to in Bitcoin?
The best advice that people should be paying attention to: learn about cold storage. Get your Bitcoin. I mean, it's just obvious, right? This is like obvious stuff. It's like ad nauseum. Take your Bitcoin off the exchanges. Like, look, nobody needs to learn this lesson. Okay. Like, exchanges go down. They may give you back your nominal dollar amount, but I can almost guarantee you ain't going to get that Bitcoin back. Okay. So just learn about self-custody, learn about taking Bitcoin into self-custody. Another thing is think critically. Critical thinking, it's almost like so many people's minds are so calcified, they cannot think critically. Like, it's really scary stuff. And all that really means, right? It's okay to be skeptical. Like, just because you're skeptical, it doesn't mean you're a hater. It doesn't mean that you think something's going to fail. It just means that you want to understand it. Give yourself the opportunity to think critically and to be a skeptic. Think adversarially. Once upon a time, okay, we would talk about negative use cases. Once upon a time, right? Like, so look, one of the things that I did early in my journey, every morning I'd wake up, and this is when I first got into Bitcoin, really just into Bitcoin only, and I'd drop coins, but I still was on the fence. So every day I'd wake up and I'd say, today's the day that I debunk Bitcoin. Today's the day that I figure out exactly why I need to stop buying this and I need to sell it. And you know what happened? What would happen? By the end of the day, I would end up stacking again, because every single day I couldn't debunk Bitcoin. So every single day I ended up stacking because I would constantly would try to figure out, how am I missing this? What am I missing? How is this thing broken? And I'm not seeing that it's a scam. And every single day that I couldn't figure it out, I would just buy more Bitcoin. Because it would constantly, right as I was trying to debunk it, I was actually building conviction. That's what would happen. So yeah, don't be afraid to try to debunk Bitcoin. You might just find yourself becoming a bigger bull. So
yeah, exactly. And that is the proof of work right there, that you were trying to and you couldn't debunk it.
that's right.
Yeah. So we're going to go into a rapid fire round now.
Uh-oh.
Okay. It's no stress, easy questions. So Bitcoin in one word.
Freedom.
Yes, go. That's classic answers. Best answer.
Yeah, I was gonna say language, but in the end it's more of a tool for freedom. So freedom. Sorry, continue.
No, that's great. Yeah. Fiat in one word.
Slop.
Yeah. Who's the most underrated Bitcoiner on Twitter right now?
Damn. You.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're the most underrated Bitcoiner on Twitter. You and the orange pill order.
Thank you. I'll take that. I'll take that. Now I'm going to flip it. Who's the most overrated Bitcoiner?
Most overrated Bitcoin. Oh,
No hate.
Sailor. Yeah, for
Sailor?
sure it's Sailor. For sure
Yeah.
it's Michael Saylor. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
even Sailor. I'll stick with that one.
Yeah. Yeah. If you could orange pill one celebrity overnight, who would it be?
Alive or dead?
Any.
Yeah, because I'm trying to imagine if we could do time travel. Any celebrity?
Yeah.
Steve McQueen.
Okay, yeah. I like that answer. That's a good answer. I like that. I like that.
I like him a lot.
Yeah, that's great. While you're recording, coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
good. Yeah. It's like an addiction at this point. This is like my 6th cup today.
Yeah. For us, it's tea, obviously, like UK and all of that stuff. But yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You guys know what you're doing with the tea. I respect it. I respect it.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Finish this sentence. The central bankers are.
An illusion.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that wraps it up for the rapid fire. Now we get on to the famous question. So we ask every single guest this, and we hold it till the end of the episode because it always brings out the best answers. So could you share with us something that is little known or completely unknown about yourself, about the Pleb Underground, about life, about Bitcoin, anything?
Something that people don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to give too much away.
No, you don't have to give it.
Something that people don't know.
It can be about Bitcoin. It doesn't have to be about you. Yeah, it
Oh,
can it can
I have no, yeah, I have no idea what people don't know about Bitcoin.
yeah.
Maybe
Um,
it's the fact that I mean, I could just say the 21 million hard cap isn't real. It's
yeah,
only there is a hard cap, but it isn't actually 21 million.
yeah.
So that's
It's
the
less.
thing, right? There is a hard cap. It's just not 21 million.
Yeah,
It's 20.99999 whatever.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so
Okay,
there's that.
well, that's a good answer. That's a great answer. So thank you very much for answering that. So Phil, before I let you go, where do people find you? Find Fun with Bitcoin. Find the Pleb Underground.
Okay. So if you want to find all of our content is on plebunderground.com. Check us out on YouTube, though. It's at Pleb Underground, all one word. And if you want to find me on Twitter, I am at Coinicarus. And of course, on Twitter, it is at Pleb Underground. Thank you so much, by the way, for having me on the show, Thomas. It was
Thank
really
you
a
so
lot of fun.
much.
You have great questions, man.
Thank you so much. You've been incredible. These answers have been great. Yeah, all of those links, as you just said, we'll put them in the description. So for anyone listening, if you've been searching for the Bitcoin podcast that focuses on the human side and not just kind of the charts and the money, Fun with Bitcoin is one of the best. Plus the roundtable if you want the more technical Lightning dev side. So Phil, massive respect from me and everyone at OPO crew. Okay, guys, that is a wrap. If this podcast episode got you thinking, smash the like, subscribe, share it with anyone who needs it. I mean, that is how we orange pill the world, one person at a time. So drop a comment. Who's your favorite music artist now and why? And I'll reply to every single one of them. Follow us on X at orangepillorder. Look up the website, orangepillorder.com. We're going to have new formats of content. We're going to have 2 questions, and that's going to be shorter based, and that's going to be quick and easy to listen to. Keep stacking sats, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next one.